So this passage is from the life sciences, and one of the most common types of passages that we have seen in CAT is from environment sciences. And such a passage you can expect in the examination. And let's read the passage first, and then we will see how to dissect these kind of passages. It says, all of the cells in a particular plant start out with the same complement of genes. How can these cells differentiate and form structures as different as roots, stems, leaves, and fruits? The answer is that only a small subset of genes in a particular kind of cell are expressed or turned on at a given time. This is accomplished by a complex system of chemical messengers that in plants include hormones and other regulatory molecules. 5 major hormones have been identified. Auxin, and then all the names have come, and studies of plants have now identified a new class of regulatory molecules called oligosaccharin. So it's a difficult passage because sometimes the strange nouns, the unfamiliar nouns might overwhelm you, and you will have difficulty grappling with what exactly is given in the passage. So the author has said that there is a system of genes, and he says that that all of the cells start with the same complement of genes, and then how can they differentiate into roots, stems, and leaves? And the answer is that only a small subset of genes is turned on, and this is accomplished by a complex system of messengers including hormones, and now they have discovered a new kind of regulatory molecule, and that is oligosaccharin. And then further it says, unlike the oligosaccharin, the 5 well-known plant hormones are pleiotropic rather than specific. The author says, unlike the oligosaccharides, the 5 well-known plant hormones are pleiotropic rather than specific. That is, each has more than one effect on. So here we have difference between oligosaccharin and plant hormones. And he says that the 5 has so many simultaneous effects that they are not very useful in artificially controlling the growth of crops. So some kind of artificial control of the growth of crops has been discussed, and the word auxin has come. Auxin, for instance, stimulates the rate of cell elongation, causes this, causes that, inhibits that. Auxin has also caused, so auxin has been discussed here, and 5 well-known plant hormones has been discussed here. So when you have this kind of passage in which it is difficult for you to understand, your job is to just locate what has come where. For instance, in this second paragraph you have the word auxin, and you have the word auxin coming in the first paragraph. So the 5 major hormones have come in the first paragraph towards the end. In the second paragraph, you have some kind of artificial control of crops, and you have the word auxin coming in. So this is how you have to map the passage. There is no need for you to think very deep and wonder and panic, because this passage is something which is outside your domain. It happens with most of us, right? And then it says the pleiotropy of the 5 well-studied plant hormones is somewhat analogous to that of certain hormones in animal. For example, hormones from the hypothalamus in the brain stimulate the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland to synthesize and release many different hormones, one of which stimulates the release of hormones from the adrenal cortex. These hormones have, so it says that you have some kind of example. So it says here that the pleiotropy of the 5 well-studied plant hormones is somewhat analogous to that of certain hormones in animals. So pleiotropy has been discussed, and then, for example, hormones in the hypothalamus in the brain. So hypothalamus in the brain, so from plants you have moved to animals, because what has the author discussed here is the hypothalamus in the brain. It does this, it does something else. These hormones have specific effects on target organs all over the body. One hormone stimulates thyroid. So until here you will find that the author has discussed the function of the hypothalamus, hormones from the hypothalamus, right? So this is how it is. And then he says such a hierarchy may also exist in plants. Oligosaccharides are fragments of the cell wall released by enzymes. Different enzymes release different oligosaccharin. There are indications that pleiotropic plant hormones may actually function by activating the enzymes that release these other more specific chemical messengers. This kind of passage, it is very difficult for you to get the central idea, because there is no central idea, there is no main purpose. In fact, the author is just discussing a kind of hormones of plants, and he has just said that these plant hormones might be similar to hormones in animals. And then he has occasionally he discusses oligosaccharides as well. So there is no specific central idea in the passage. What you can do at best is understand that lots of technicalities are there. Once you go to the question, check what exactly has been asked, and then you come back to the passage. If you try to understand the passage with the nitty-gritty of it, it will be very, very difficult for you. You might read the passage 3 to 4 times without getting firm grip on. That would be a waste of time. So what do I mean by mapping? When I read the passage, the author has introduced oligosaccharin in the last sentence of the first paragraph. This is what he has done in the first paragraph. And then he starts saying that, how can the plants, if the plants have the same complement of genes, then how do they develop roots, stems, leaves? And then he says the answer is something. And then he introduces the 5 hormones. He introduces oligosaccharin. He talks about oligosaccharin, artificial control of plants. He talks about auxin, which is an example of something. Then he talks about the hormones in the hypothalamus. And then again, he comes in the end and he talks about oligosaccharin. So oligosaccharin has come in the end of the first paragraph, in the second paragraph, towards the end of the third paragraph. Auxin has come in the second paragraph in between, and it has come at the end of the first paragraph. Then you have the word pleiotropy, which has come in the second paragraph and in the third paragraph. So when you do the mapping, you actually just locate what is where. And then you straight away go to the question. There is no need for you to understand what are the functions performed by auxin, the functions performed by hypothalamic hormones. No need to, read it carefully. Just know that if there is a question, I will go to that part of the passage and try to find the answer, right? So look at this question. It says, according to the passage, the 5 well-known plant hormones are not useful in controlling the growth of crops because. So the author has said that the 5 well-known plant hormones are not useful in controlling the growth of crops. So that means basically the answer must be somewhere in the growth of crops. And we know that when we were reading the passage, in the second paragraph, this thing has come. So it says, unlike oligosaccharin, the 5 well-known plant hormones are pleiotropic rather than specific. That is, each has more than one effect. The 5 has so many effects that they are not useful in controlling. That means basically, because the 5 have so many effects, they are not useful in controlling the growth of crops. So the question says, according to the passage, the 5 well-known plant hormones are not useful. Why they are not useful? Because they have so many effects, right? So which option is doing that? It is known. A is not the right choice because it is not matching with what we just read. Each hormone has various effects on plants. Yes, each has so many effects that it is difficult. And then D says each hormone has different effects on different. Now this is where you say that no, this is something which is not in correct place. Each hormone has a function, but different effects on different kinds. This is not clear to us. So D can be ruled out and B can be selected if you compare between B and D. C says none of the hormones can function without the others. Now this is again not given. So when something is not given, there is no need for you to worry about it. Each hormone works on a small subset. Nothing is given. The answer is B. I would say this is a very simple question. You read the question. You know that where it has come from. You went there and you marked the answer. So these kind of questions are easy. Even if you haven't understood the passage as a whole, you can mark such questions correctly. The passage suggests. Now the meaning of the word suggest is that to give some kind of indirect reference. So for example, I may say something explicitly or I may say something indirectly. And when I say something indirectly, that can be used as suggesting or to speak something indirectly, right? That is what we mean by the passage suggests. The passage suggests that the place of hypothalamic hormones in the hormonal hierarchies of animals is similar to the place of which of the following in plants. Now we know that the word hypothalamus has come in the third paragraph. So we have to go to the third paragraph, look where the word hypothalamus has come, and we'll try to read this. He says the pleiotropy of the 5. So what do you mean by pleiotropy? So if you have difficulty understanding, the author has said that the 5 plant hormones are pleiotropic. So when they are pleiotropic, that means each has more than one effect, right? So if each has more than one effect means they are pleiotropic. So the pleiotropy of the 5 well-studied plant hormones is somewhat analogous to that of certain hormones in animals. So the pleiotropy of the 5 well-studied plant hormones is somewhat analogous to certain hormones in animals. For example, hormones from the hypothalamus. That means hormones from the hypothalamus are analogous to hormones in the five well-studied plants, right? So that means if the question says that the hypothalamic hormones have a similar place to what, they are analogous to what? So they are analogous to the five major hormones, and therefore they have a place similar to the place of the five major hormones. So we can directly mark D. See, once the comparison is clear, there is no need for you to cross question anything. And it is explicitly given that the pleiotropy of the five well-studied plant hormones is somewhat analogous to the to that of certain hormones in animal. And the example is hypothalamus. That means hypothalamus is analogous to the pleiotropy of the five well-studied hormones. That means the places are comparable. If there is analogy, means there is comparison. So that means hypothalamus or the hypothalamic hormones. Because the hormones from the hypothalamus will become hypothalamic hormones. And they are analogous to what? The five well-studied plant hormones. So the five major hormones. Straight away D, there is no second thoughts about it. If you have marked anything else, you have just gone in the wrong direction. There is no point justifying it. Third question. The third question says the passage suggests that which of the following is a function likely to be performed by an oligosaccharin. So the question says that which of the following is a function likely to be performed by oligosaccharin. Now the problem is that oligosaccharin has come at few places, right? So what is the function of oligosaccharin? So the second para says, unlike the oligosaccharin, the five well-known plant hormones are pleiotropic. That is, each has more than one effect. That means the oligosaccharin has not many effects, it has unique effect. If you read this paragraph, it says, unlike the oligosaccharin, the five well-known plant hormones are pleiotropic rather than specific. That is, each has more than one effect on the growth and development of plants. So if each has more than one effect, that means the five well-known plant hormones have more than one effect. Each has more than one effect. And they are unlike the oligosaccharin. That means the oligosaccharin do not have many effects or more than one effect. They have singular effect. So oligosaccharin has singular effect. But the problem is that we don't have any option. A says to stimulate a particular plant cell to become part of a plant's root system, to stimulate the walls to produce other oligosaccharin, to activate enzymes that release specific chemical messengers, to duplicate the gene, to produce multiple effects. So definitely E goes out. Because oligosaccharin is not producing multiple effect. Oligosaccharin is unlike the five well-known plant hormones, and these five well-known are having multiple effects. So if oligosaccharin is unlike them, that means it will not produce multiple effect. It will produce singular effect. So E definitely can be ruled out. Now A, B, C, D, which of the following is a singular effect? You might wonder, you would say, sir, everything looks good. Then where is the answer? The problem is that option B, option C, they straight away are giving wrong choices to us. Why? B says to stimulate the walls of a particular cell to produce other oligosaccharin. Now you mean to say that the function likely to be performed by an oligosaccharin is to stimulate the walls to produce other oligosaccharin. Have a look at this. It says oligosaccharin are fragments of the cell wall released by enzymes. Different enzymes release different oligosaccharin. So oligosaccharids are not released by oligosaccharin. Enzymes release oligosaccharin. This is clearly given. Different enzymes release different oligosaccharin. And in the option you say that oligosaccharin stimulates the walls of a cell to produce other oligosaccharin. So oligosaccharin is not stimulating this, the walls. It is the enzyme which is doing it. So B goes out. And then C says to activate enzymes. But is oligosaccharin activating enzymes? It is not given. There are indications that pleiotropic plant hormones may function by activating. So it is the pleiotropic plant hormones that function by activating the enzymes. And the pleiotropy is not there with oligosaccharin. The pleiotropy is there with the five well-studied plant hormones. The five well-known plant hormones have the pleiotropy. And instead of writing the five well-known plant hormones, you are giving the credit to oligosaccharin. So again, we can rule out option C as well. So there are only two choices: to stimulate a particular plant cell to become a part of plant's root system, or to duplicate the gene. Now the problem is that many of you might mark D and many of you might mark A. The answer definitely is A. And then why is it A? Is it duplicating the gene? No, it is not duplicating the gene. Have a look at this part of the passage and you will get to know why it is not duplicating the gene. If you scroll up here, it says that the answer is that a small subset of genes are expressed or turned on. So if you read these lines, the answer is here. So the question says all of the cells in a particular plant start out with the same complement of genes. That means all the cells have the same complement of genes. How then can these cells differentiate to form roots, stems and leaves? So the answer the author says is that a small subset of genes is turned on. That means if the plant wants to form roots, one specific set of genes would be turned on. If the plant wants to form stem, one set of genes would be turned on, and so on and so forth. And who does this? It is accomplished by a complex system of chemical messengers that in plants include hormones and regulatory molecules. So the turning on of the genes is accomplished by what? It is accomplished by regulatory molecules and hormones. And oligosaccharin is a regulatory molecule. So oligosaccharin is a regulatory molecule. Regulatory molecule accomplish what? Turning on of the genes, and by turning on of the genes, what do? They form roots, stems and leaves. So oligosaccharin will indirectly play a role in forming roots, stems or leaves. So the function is to stimulate a plant cell to become a part of the root system. Why? Because it's a regulatory molecule. Regulatory molecule plays a part in that. D says duplicating the gene is a wrong term. It is stimulating the gene. It is stimulating, it is turning it on, not duplicating. So you are using the wrong word. Duplicating is incorrect. Answer is A. Difficult question, but that is how the questions come in the exam. You just cannot take the words for granted. If you develop the habit of taking the words for granted, you will pay a huge price for it. Now let's go into the fourth question. The fourth says the author mentions specific effects that auxin has on plant in order to. So auxin has come, and auxin's different effects have come in the second paragraph. The author says the 5 has so many simultaneous effects that they are not useful in artificially controlling growth of crops. So the 5 well-known plant hormones have so many effects that they are not useful in artificially controlling the growth of crops. And auxin, for instance, so auxin is basically one of the 5 major hormones. And it has so many effects. It stimulates the rate of cell elongation. It causes shoots to grow up. It inhibits the growth of lateral shoots. So it has many functions, right? So can we say that the author has mentioned auxin to illustrate what? To illustrate the concept of pleiotropy. Why? Because auxin is pleiotropic, and by mentioning the different functions, the author is illustrating the pleiotropy. All the others go out. See, when you see the answer, you just know that all are nonsense. Point that some of the effects of plant hormones can be harmful. Harmful is not the concern of the author. They are not ways in which they are produced. Hierarchical nature of the functioning, no plant hormone. There's no hierarchy. I mean, the author is not mentioning auxin to show the hierarchical nature. He is mentioning auxin to show the different function it performs. So he is trying to exhibit the pleiotropy and not the hierarchical nature. E is the best choice. E is the best choice. You have no other choice. So E is here, right? Now the fifth question says, according to the passage, which of the following best describes? So this question number 5 is very similar to question number 3. Question number 3 asks you to check the one which is likely to be performed by oligosaccharin, and question number 5 also asks you to mark the option that you think is a function performed by oligosaccharin. Now A says regulating the daily function. Now the point is, when you say daily functioning, it means doing lots of things, and we know that oligosaccharin has a specific job. It is not having multiple effects. So regulating daily functioning would mean that the oligosaccharin is doing lots of things, and therefore it is having multiple effects. So marking option A would be implying directly that oligosaccharin is having multiple effect. The problem is regulating the daily functioning of plant cell is equal to having multiple effect. Why? Because when you're doing lots of things, of course, you're focusing on lots of things, and therefore you're having multiple effects. And oligosaccharin has specific effect, not multiple effects. So A goes out. Interacting with one another to produce, again, they're not producing chemicals. They're not producing chemical messengers. So influencing the development of a plant cell by controlling the expression. The author says that if it is given clearly that oligosaccharin controls, it is given here that the answer is that only a small subset of genes in a particular kind of cell are expressed or turned on. So the expressing or the turning on is done by a small subset of genes, and therefore The turning on is basically controlling, right? Regulating. It's a regulatory molecule, so it is controlling. I mean, regulating is equal to controlling. They are producing hormones, so all go out. E is the best choice in this case as well. Look at the sixth question now. The passage suggests that unlike pleiotropic hormones, oligosaccharin could be used to control, artificially control, because the pleiotropic hormones have so many effects that they are not useful in controlling the growth, artificially controlling the growth of plants. On the other hand, oligosaccharins, unlike these pleiotropic hormones, that means oligosaccharin can be used in that case if the pleiotropy of the 5 well-studied hormones is making them less totally useless in artificially controlling the growth of plants. That means oligosaccharin, which is unlike these, can be used. So it is suggesting, of course, it's not directly stating that. So C is the best choice, and the answer can be found from the second paragraph. There is no need for me to show it to you. Easy question, I would say, and a good passage. It teaches you a lot of things. It teaches you that even when you don't understand the passage, in fact, when the passage is very much alien to you, still you can manage the questions correctly.